Hi, everybody. Welcome to episode 170 of Radio A15, the podcast dedicated to examining the works of writer, director, producer J.J. Abrams and his extended Bad Robot universe. I'm Matt Crandall, here with Marcelo and Inostroza as we continue to watch Undercovers, the 2010 NBC spy series co-created by J.J. Abrams. Today we are talking about the 6th episode entitled Xerxes, the character from 300 and History that you may know. In this instance, a spy weapons dealer that they have to track down. And this episode, Marcelo, finally gives us a little bit of the backstory for Sam and Steven's early days as, you know, they are thrown into this thing where we need to bring in an agent that Sam used to work with a lot during the early days, and he lets slip a few things about Steven's history that gives us pause. How are you feeling as we go into Undercovers? And this one has a lot more character and backstory.
I really appreciated that the setup for this episode was really short. Essentially, it was that scene from Fringe with the guy on the bus having that device, and he takes the device and he lets it loose in the bus and they all die. And that is basically it for the big bad, for one of the big bads in this episode. I mean, we do see him one other time, but like Matt said, this episode really focuses on the Blooms and really focuses in on their backstories that they have from one another from weeks past. But my only issue with that is this. What the secret ends up being, at least for Steven, is so lame. It's like, really? Because here's my problem, folks. Here's my problem. In episodes past, they built it up as this big thing. And when we finally get it, I'm like, ugh. So I'm really hoping that Sam's secret, because we know that Sam has one too. I'm really hoping that Sam's secret is a lot more down the line of the secret that I was expecting Steven to have. Because the secret that Steven had, and by secret I mean in this episode we find out why he left the agency, is so fucking dumb. Really? They're not gonna kick you out of the CIA for that. I mean, they might, but for that, come on. This episode was fun because it spent more time with the Blooms, and again, for like a second week in a row, one main character was missing, which I loved. But like the thing that really pissed me off about this episode is that the whole reason why Steven left the agency. I'm like, this sucks. Really? You guys could have done much better.
It did suck, but I couldn't also tell if that was why he left the agency, because they kept saying it was why he washed out of the academy.
Oh, okay.
So I thought that this was like when they were going to train to be spies. He got kicked out because he used the resources to figure out who this woman was. But then he said something along the lines of like, then I went the next fall after he had met her. So I don't know if this was like he got kicked out of Quantico for a semester and then had to go back in. But the way they worded it was really weird, because it was why he got kicked out of the academy rather than like, I don't know if they said like, this is why he left the CIA, the agency overall. But I also think we shouldn't have that kind of cloudiness in the backstory, but also like, it was not believable. It was not believable. Even if it was just the academy, they kicked him out just because he tried to look up who this woman was. That doesn't make any sense. And if it was the agency, then that absolutely doesn't make any sense. So either way, it was confounding that was something that was supposed to be like a grand romantic gesture. But it didn't really play like that. It was just, it felt like somebody's idea of what would be a cool backstory. And I don't believe it for a second that would really happen.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it was really fun seeing Steven and Sam try to come to the realization that if they start sharing stories about their past, they were still going to be okay. That it's okay to share things from your past, and the your opposite partner is still going to love you no matter what you've done. like that has always been the question with me about why Steven and Sam don't share their past exploits with one another, because no matter what happens, Steven is not gonna just leave Sam like that for something that she did 20 years ago. And Sam and Sam is not gonna leave Steven for something that he did at the same time. So it really bugs me why these people, and this has just come up in the last couple episodes. It really bugs me why these people feel the need to handcuff their relationship in that sort of way, just because they're worried that the other might think less of them based on what they did for their agency, based on what they did for their country 20 years ago.
Right.
So that has always confounded me. But the one thing that I really enjoyed about this episode until the turn happened is that Stephen and Sam have to work with the British government on this one. And one of the agents that's with the British one of the agents that's with the British attachment in this episode is a really, really hot British woman. And Hoyt, who I love Hoyt, he just falls in love with this girl, and she's a really, I thought the actress did a really good job. She has that nerdy ditzy thing going on really, really well.
Yep.
But after the turn happened, I'm like, God damn it. I really was invested in these two being in future episodes, but that gets shot to shit once the turn happens. So what did you think about that stuff?
So this was the best part of the episode, was that we get this. So Sam has this guy who has to pretend to be her husband, and he has like his assistant basically. And so the British spy dude has this British assistant lady, Tessa. And while Clive is like hotshot James Bond type, which is funny because he was on an episode of Timeless, the TV series, playing Ian Fleming, who writes James Bond. And here he's basically playing like a James Bond type. But so I liked that he has this assistant, Tessa, that Hoyt is like head over heels for, and he's like nervous, and he's geek guy. And I like that as the episode goes on and we realize that Tessa is actually Xerxes. She has been undercover, double cross, all this stuff. And luckily our dude Hoyt, though, has been so stalker like obsessed with her that like he was eavesdropping a little bit, and he like memorized everything she said. And so then they can use him overhearing conversations and making mental notes of it to then actually track and become part of the plot. So I really liked when he was like, oh, she was talking to her sister about this, and she said these numbers, and it was this phone number, and I was memorizing it because I'm kind of obsessed with her and I want to ask her out. And I thought that the way that they turned that on its head, so that when we find out that she is the villain, and then Hoyt has all the answers because he's this fanboy who, instead of being in love with Steven in this episode, is in love with this woman. It was really funny and kind of refreshing to see that nervous energy then pay off and be able to help them in their mission.
Let me ask you something, because right now I'm getting a little concerned. I mean, look, I hate him. I don't like him. I think he's an asshole in a suit. Why do you think that like Leo was around like for the first batch of episodes, and now he's like nowhere to be seen for like 2 weeks? What do you think that's about? Do you think that's just the writers writing him out for story purposes, or do you think the writers kind of thought to themselves, this is not working, we need to go in a different direction?
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's that, or if it's like, he's not main cast, he's a series regular, so we're going to stick him in 9 of the 13 episodes instead of 13 out of the 13. Otherwise, they probably had to give him a pay promotion. So I think there's probably something to that, where like, this happens on a lot of procedurals. Like, there'll be an episode of The Rookie. There literally will be an episode of The Rookie where John Nolan, Nathan Fillion's character, isn't in it. And it's like, oh, he's doing paperwork this week. And it's like, because of contracts and all this shit, sometimes people get weeks off, or have to ride the bench for budgetary reasons. So I feel like it was kind of that, because I don't think that they realized everyone hated Leo yet. Only because they probably would have had these 6 episodes before it started airing. But if he doesn't come back anytime soon, then they'll realize it's because we all didn't really love Leo.
Mm-hmm. No, I mean, that's an interesting point that you bring up, that, in a long running show like The Rookie or NCIS, there are characters that get a couple weeks off because of this or that. I didn't know that was a thing, but apparently that's a thing. I mean, an episode of The Rookie without Nathan Fillion, that seems a little weird to me, but okay.
They've done a few and they're not good. They've done a few and they're not good. Oftentimes it will be the supporting cast who much more likely to take a vacation, but every once in a while you'll get like one of those, or like back in the day with like an episode of Grey's Anatomy where Meredith just fucks off for the whole day and everybody's like, I don't know where she is. And you're like, okay.
But you know what? One thing about this episode that got me really excited, but then I got really, really disappointed really, really fast. The episode starts with Steven looking for Sam somewhere. They're in their kitchen and they're late for a meeting with Shaw. So Steven is looking for his wife, and they do a really cute scene with Greg Romsberg's brother and that other dude from the other episode that was competing with Samantha's sister, and Greg Romsberg's brother is refusing to boil a crab. It's just a really good scene. So I was hoping that this episode was going to involve the kitchen staff, and I'm like, oh, this is it. This is the episode that me and Matt were sort of like willing into existing. It's actually going to happen, and then, it doesn't happen. I was like, God damn it, that's the biggest bait switch ever. Make it happen. Do it.
They are locked into this formula where the first 5 minutes and the last 5 minutes can be the Blooms' other life, but then everything else is the Alias episode. And it's getting a little bit tiresome because I do like the stuff with the sister and the kitchen staff. And then the last 5 minutes are Sam and Steven at home talking in bed. And like whenever we're on the homestead or the cover catering company, like I like that stuff. It's good. The spy stuff continues to feel like Spy TV 101, where we have a double cross and a painting and a fake painting and a code. And it's like, God, you guys bought like old spy novels and just took the first 10 spy themes that you found and were using every single trope in the box. But I like the moments with the supporting characters, or when Shaw is annoyed that they're late for the meeting. Like, these are the things that I like. And I just wish we could find a way to make more of that happen along the mission, which is why this one was a step forward, because I thought the Hoyt stuff along the mission actually works character-wise with the plot. But when we are doing too much dress up and we aren't getting good character moments in that middle 35 minutes, because we know at the first 5 minutes and the last 5 minutes we will get that stuff, that's the failing of the show, I feel, overall so far from these first 6 episodes.
Mm-hmm. I think the failing of the show so far from the first 6 episodes was the fact that we are 6 episodes in and we still haven't figured out why the fuck the agency wanted the Blooms back in the first place. That thing should be hanging over our head like a big grenade this whole season. But the fact that it's not is kind of concerning to me. And Matt hinted that the last episode, what would be the series finale for the show, is called The Reason, and there we're finally gonna figure out what the hell the reason was. But I really think that there should have been. I really think that they should have fed that out a lot more than they did. Am I wrong for thinking that, or am I sort of like on the right path?
No, you're entirely right for thinking it. It's just, again, this show came at such a weird time where they pitched it to NBC as anybody can watch any episode, even if they aren't sticking with the show.
Right.
And Bad Robot's bread and butter had been serialized story, carryover themes, carryover plot, characters that recur, and we tried to strip a lot of that away, so we're only allowing very little of that to seep in without just being a mystery of the week action show. And that's literally like the antithesis of what Bad Robot is good at. So
Right.
like even the best episodes of Alias, it was because there was carryover in the spy story. It wasn't like a new unrelated mission every week. It was somehow tying into SD6 or Rambaldi or Arena Derevko. All this stuff was weaving together so that, you know, you couldn't watch it. You couldn't watch episode 10 if you didn't see episode 9.
Right.
And that's actually what we like now more than ever. And it's just funny that, yeah, 15 years ago, we were still trying to cancel that out. Again, why are you getting J.J. Abrams if you just want NCIS James Bond, right? Get Dick Wolf or whoever the fuck does all those FBI bullshit shows.
No, it's Dick Wolf. That's him. That's Wolf Films. Yeah, that's Dick Wolf. He does FBI and everything for CBS. He's like CBS's king. No, but I do want to point out, I need some help figuring out because I did find the storytelling in this episode to be a little bit confusing. Cause here's why. The show starts out, like I mentioned before, with a guy testing out a weapon of mass destruction on a bus. It's very, very Fringe faction. That guy gets killed by somebody that looks like Donald Trump. There's somebody that looks like Donald Trump, but is not Donald Trump, which was the funniest thing about this episode. I was under the understanding that the episode was going to be about this thing that the guy tested on the bus. But then the story takes a complete 180 and it ends up being about this painting with this formula. I'm like, where the hell did this come from? If this thing was about the painting, the painting should have been on the bus. I don't understand how it was very weird to me that they started the episode with this weapon being tested, and then they didn't go back to the weapon. Then it all became about this painting and this formula on the painting, unless this formula was the formula to make the gas that we saw that's the only way that I could sort of rationalize it in my head.
That is what it is. So the deadly nerve toxin or whatever the hell that did feel like a very Fringe-esque, like, I'm going to test this shit myself and watch all these people mutate and die. Then that guy gets killed after he drops off the formula that's on the painting. Okay, so the formula under the painting will tell them how to recreate this nerve gas. But then he gets double-crossed, and the people that they think are after the painting, you know, is the wrong person, and then more people blow up and stuff goes on. So it is red herring after red herring and double cross and all that stuff, which can be exciting. But again, we care mostly about the character dynamic because I like Steven and Sam the best, and I just want to have more fun scenes with them rather than trying to have to be like, what is this formula and what painting and why do I care? Newsflash, I don't.
Yeah. Do you think in the weeks to come that Sam and Steven are going to eventually say, fuck it, let's just open up with one another because it's not worth it, all this distrust between the two of us? I mean, I like that. And again, we still have Sam's secret hanging over us. We don't know what that is. So maybe that is something that will further splinter the relationship. But do you think that at some point this season, with the remaining episodes that we have, they're going to start to open up with one another about what they did in the past with the agency before they got together?
It's tough to tell because we would definitely like that. But was that on the whiteboard for season 1, or was that with a big arrow to the whiteboard for season 2 that got erased and never became anything? So again, I just wish that we would start hitting some of these points sooner. And as you mentioned, tell us the real reason they got recruited. We're at almost the halfway point. And if we don't start hitting that gas on what is really going on here that's going to pull us deeper into the story, it's going to be too late.
Do you think that, because you just said you just mentioned we're at the halfway point now. Do you think that the writers' room got the call already, or do you think the call's coming?
I think in the way that it would have been produced, they wrote this episode before they got the call. Okay. I do think that episode 9 to 13 is probably when they knew. And hopefully they knew in time that those scripts were not locked and that they could add some sort of closure, because I think by then, especially when they're shooting 10 to 13 for sure, but I have a feeling around episode 9 is where they may have realized this show ain't going. The ratings are not there. We're not getting picked up. Let's lay it all out.
Right. I mean, I wonder. Look. Well, I hope to find this out one day. But I wonder what it's like to be in a room where they tell you, well, guess what, guys? After all your hard work, you're not getting picked up. What happens to those people in that room? They're like, holy shit! I've just been fired. I realized that I had to finish my work, but I also got to figure out where I'm going to go next. So, I wonder what happens to a room after that happens. It's like, what do they do?
It's a tough thing to figure out, because I'm sure it's different for every show, and especially because part of you would think, obviously, we're all losing our jobs, so that's shit. And if they had a great, amazing arc crafted, you wonder, do they go through with it, or do they say, we might want to use this in another room at another time, so let's not burn this incredible finale storyline that we have come up with on a show that's getting shit canned that no one's watching. So instead of all these cool twists and reveals, I might want to keep some of these plot mechanics for a show that I get hired on next. Right? So it doesn't feel like I'm ripping off my old shit. And again, oftentimes when these shows get canceled, they are not given more budget to adequately ramp up the action or whatever to bring the story home. That's why every once in a while we get the gift of they're getting a wrap-up movie, or they're getting 3 extra episodes to put a bow on the thing. But half the time it's it's canceled, and they were already shooting episode 12 when they found out, and they're not giving them any more money for episode 13. So everything's fucking locked. They can just add a few dialogue scenes that have to take place in the same locations they already had planned for the episode.
Right. Like you mentioned this series earlier, and I love this series, and I don't know if you and I have ever talked about it, but Timeless. Timeless was a great show that had a shitty time slot. It was so stupid. Their time slot was so dumb. But they got renewed, then canceled again. But then, because of their awesome fan base, NBC decided to say, okay, you know what? They went to Sean Ryan and Eric Kripke and said, we're gonna give you guys an opportunity to do the show right, and they gave them a movie. And now I understand that's not in the cards for the Undercovers at all. I totally understand it. But with the remaining episodes that we have left, how do you think the rest of the show is going to be? Do you think it's going to be just status quo, or do you think that at the point when the writers get the call that they're going to start churning everything to an end here?
I don't know how it ends, because they never aired the episodes and I never bought the DVDs. So I think, judging by the ratings on IMDb, where all of the episodes are pretty middling, like 5.8s and 6.4s, up until the end, the ratings do start going up. So I'm like, I bet once they get the call, they realize they got to start paying off some shit that they're never going to actually be able to flesh out. And I hope they do, because it would be nice if by the time we're done this series, we look back on it and say, that was one that should have ran longer, but we're glad that they gave us something that can still hold up, rather than just being like, man, what a waste of Gugu and Beth Ra for 13 episodes to be so charismatic and sexy, and then canceled the show without leaving a footprint.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm not going to tell you guys right now, and I'm not going to tell you guys right here and now that this is like another 11/22/63 for me, but I like the show more than 11/22/63 because I care about these people and I want to see them do their jobs, and I like these characters way better than I did James Franco and that his shit. My problem with this show, and I think it's Matt's problem as well. This show has a lot of potential that it's just not utilizing correctly. And I do hope that when the show ends, I do hope that me and Matt feel that, okay, this show was rough, but at least it landed the ship in the best way that it could. You know, being that it got its legs chopped off from underneath it, like way before it needed to go, right? So I do hope that ultimately is the case with the Undercovers.
I'm hopeful that as it heads to a finish, that we will not be mad that we watched it. And again, when it was on at the time, I enjoyed it well enough that, you know, I haven't thought like, what a travesty it got canceled, but I also haven't thought, you know, I'm mad that we've been watching it. So next week we will be talking about episode 7 of Undercovers season 1, entitled Assassin. So if you are watching along, that one's going to be directed by Brad Anderson, who's a guy who did a ton of episodes of Fringe. So he's a bad robot guy coming to play, which should hopefully be good. If you guys are listening to this show right now, first off, thanks. We appreciate it. Like, follow, subscribe, share, tell your friends. We are on anywhere you get a podcast. We're also on YouTube. So you can listen to episodes there. Like, follow, subscribe, comment. Any comments we'll read on the show. Marcelo's taking care of the social media stuff. So check that out. Please let us know if you're listening along. If there's any bad robot stuff you want us to cover that we haven't covered yet, you're the one person who's dying to hear two dudes talk about Lovecraft Country. Let us know. Otherwise, that will be a long time coming. But until next time, I am Matt Crandall. If you want to get in touch with me, not easy, but I am on Letterboxd watching movies, letterboxd.com/MDC3000. Marcelo, X is still a good spot to message you. How can the people do that?
Yeah, if you want to get in touch with me and just talk to me about anything about Robot, you can get in touch with me on X. I'm at CreekFanatic88, but I just want to mention, and I just want to say thank you to our fan community who have been supporting. This really surprised the shit out of me when I looked at our numbers. But we have a lot of new folks over on our Facebook page that we have. So thank you guys for coming over there, and I hope you love our back catalog as I've been posting it over there. And I also would like to mention that we are on Discord, and we do have a couple fans over there as well. So it's been really great to interact with you guys, and I hope that you like the episodes that we have coming in the future.
Perfect. So that'll do it. Thanks so much for listening. Until next time, Radio 815, over and out.
Radio 815 is a Balloonhead Productions presentation in association with Killer Newt Productions.